keeping the golden goose laying them eggs, looking after it.
Don't take any risks.
Thing is, with Anthony Joshua, he's Olympic gold medalist, and in the UK he's a massive star. He sells out stadiums, 70,000, 90,000.
Yeah. Huge star.
Huge star.
The reason I say it's a win-win for Jake Paul is because, listen, if he wins, then he's beating a former heavyweight boxing world champion, certainly one of the best heavyweights of his generation, and of course, a man that is way bigger than Jake Paul. Of course, it's a win. And if he loses, it's still a win for Jake Paul because he had the balls. He was man enough. He was willing to test himself. He would prove everyone wrong, all his critics.
I mean, it's come out of the blue, but it's intriguing. And I think from Jake's perspective, I think, he's had a lot of criticism about he is a pro boxer now. The way you want to look at it, he trains as a pro, but, and he's fighting as a pro. They said it's about time he fought some.
Joe Rogan and Tyson Fury talked about the possible Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight and questioned why Joshua would even accept it. They said Joshua and his team seem more interested in money than real challenges. Fury said Joshua should be fighting him or Deontay Wilder because those are true heavyweight tests. Picking Jake Paul looks more like
This is a business at the end of the day. And if I was his management team, I'd say stay away from Fury, stay away from Wilder, and we'll just fight the rest of the people and keep making plenty of money. Why do we need to fight?
Michael Bisping's view on Jake Paul fighting.
Anthony.
Joshua comes down to 1 point. Jake has nothing to lose. Bisping says Jake Paul is in a spot where winning would give him huge respect and losing would still help his image. If Jake somehow beat Joshua, even by luck, he would instantly gain credibility because he defeated a former unified heavyweight champion. But even if he loses, Bisping says Jake still wins because he entered the ring with an elite heavyweight. Fans would see Jake as fearless and ambitious. For Bisping, all the pressure is on Joshua.
Out there on an island by myself, everyone says the same thing, and he would potentially prove all of those critics wrong. Well, yeah, he would, maybe, unless there's some funny business, right? And for Anthony Joshua, as I said, this is kind of a lose-lose, right? Because if he wins, people are still going to say, well, you only beat Jake Paul, right? The man that lost to Tommy Fury, after all, right? That's the only loss in his record, Tommy Fury. You're telling me that Tommy Fury is going to beat him and then Anthony Joshua's not going to beat him? So if he beats him, he gets no credit. And if he loses, then holy can you imagine? That would be the biggest downfall of any boxer's career. The reality is, he's not going to lose. There is no way on this earth that Jake Paul can beat Anthony Joshua in a boxing match. That's just a fact, okay? Look at what he did to Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou hits as hard as a Ford Escort, going 100 miles an hour or whatever that stat was. Comes from the UFC. He was the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. Has a good go against Tyson Fury, but goes up against Anthony Joshua and gets flatlined. Every single punch that was thrown was landed, and every punch that landed put Francis Ngannou down, okay? So to stand there and think that Jake Paul, who's much, much smaller, who has way less experience, that doesn't weigh anything near him, is going to have a chance, and not to mention the technical abilities. Let's just talk about that. Not to mention the technical abilities or experience. We're talking about an Olympic gold medalist, remember, from back in the day, who's then gone on to become a true British boxing icon or a worldwide boxing icon, let's be honest, right?
Rogan reminds people that Anthony Joshua is an Olympic gold medalist and one of the strongest punchers of this generation. Rogan believes Joshua would enter the ring to send a message, not just to win. He says Joshua would try to hurt Jake Paul badly enough that Jake thinks twice before calling out real heavyweight champions again. For Joshua,
God, if he beat Anthony Joshua, good Lord. Good Lord. I mean, that's a big if, right?
I mean,
Anthony Joshua,
I do not think,
Olympic gold medalist, former heavyweight champion of the world. What he did to Francis Ngannou, like, good Lord.
Yes.
Do you want that smoke?
Yeah, I just think it's all about the promotion or whatever. I have no idea what the actual motivation is for that fight's not competitive at all.
Well, it's a dangerous fight.
Yeah.
Because Joshua's going to try to make an example out of him, for sure.
And will.
And will. I mean, Anthony Joshua is one of the biggest one-punch KO artists ever.
Yes.
I mean, he's a one-punch fucking night-night guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's a great boxer.
Frank Warren sees the situation differently. He says the idea came out of nowhere with no build-up. To him, the signs showed Jake Paul is the one pushing hard for the fight. Warren says Jake is tired of people saying he chooses easy opponents, older fighters, smaller men, or non-boxers. Fighting Joshua would silence those critics right away. Warren also says most promoters never expected such a matchup, especially not pushed by Jake. It may look like a stunt, but Warren believes Jake truly wants to prove he's chasing a real heavy.
It's not a fight I even thought of. It's nothing to do with me to start with. It come out of the blue, but it's intriguing. And I think from Jake's perspective, he's had a lot of criticism about he is a pro boxer now. The way you want to look at it, he trains as a pro, but and he's fighting as a pro. They said it's about time he fought some. I've seen some of the stuff, that's been said. When's he going to fight someone? Well, he's gone from one extreme to the other. That's what he's doing. So if that fight happens, you've got to take your hat off to him.
He got called out by Andre Ward, AJ. Would you rather see Jake fight AJ, which is obviously, as we know, a mismatch, or Andre Ward, who's been retired for, 4 years?
I'd much rather see AJ fight Tyson.
Oh, please. I dread to think how many
we
times
don't know if that's going to happen because the big man, he's filming, he's not made his mind up what he's going to do. And
Ben Davison sees it from another angle. He compares Jake Paul's chances to Francis Ngannou's fight with Joshua. Davison says Ngannou, bigger, stronger, and naturally more powerful than Jake Hutton, survived Joshua's punch. Joshua knocked Ngannou out fast, showing the huge gap between elite heavyweights and crossover fighters. Davison says if a giant like Ngannou couldn't handle Joshua, then Jake Paul has no real chance at all. He says he's not insulting.
Fight like Francis Ngannou is one of the most durable men on the planet. And look at what happened there. I don't think he's good for boxing, if I'm honest.
I was about to ask, obviously, if we were to see that fight, AJ would be a heavy favourite with, I'd imagine, 99.9999% of the sport. How quickly would you expect to see Anthony Joshua get the job done against Jake Paul?
He could go in there and do what he wanted. He could play with him if he wanted to.
Spencer Oliver takes a unique approach. He thinks the fight has symbolic value. Oliver says if Joshua accepts, it would be like Muhammad Ali taking unusual matchups that drew worldwide attention. The fight could bring millions of new viewers who don't usually watch boxing. Even if the competition isn't fair, it creates massive hype. Oliver says Joshua joining something experimental could boost his global fame, especially with younger fans who follow influencers more than athletes. He believes it could expand Joshua's popularity and add to his
pops him a few times in the face, walks out of 150 million quid. No one will remember the fact he fought Jake Paul. They'll remember the fact he knocked Klitschko out in Wembley in 2017.
Totally agree with that.
So I'm kind of, whilst I don't like it, and I don't like the way that Jake Paul gravitates to these brilliant athletes and like a moth sucks the life out of them because he gets a benefit of association, because I think they deserve all the association. But he is a and there was opportunity there, wasn't there?
Listen, commercially, of course it works because it'll be huge and there'll be a load of money on the table. And for Anthony Joshua, it's like sort of, he's going to get rewarded very well with no risk, minimal risk, no risk at all. He's going to go in there and he may then put all this stuff to bed with Jake Paul and calling out all these different champions, etc., etc. So, of course it works. And when you're talking about, the credibility that Joshua's going to get, he's not going to get none now, but are people going to remember that? Of course they're not. Like, when he goes on to do what he does, didn't Muhammad Ali have some sort of strange fight in the middle of his career? Didn't he box? Yeah, he did. He boxed some non-boxing guy and whatnot. Like, people don't remember that. That's what I'm saying. Look, us as boxers, we don't remember stuff like that.
It was replicated in Rocky. So, he did a version of fighting Thunder Lips, didn't he? So we all know.
Joseph Parker says Anthony Joshua should stay focused on real heavyweight fights if he wants to keep his career strong. He believes Joshua belongs in serious matchups, not influencer-driven events. Parker says facing Jake Paul does nothing for Joshua's reputation and that he should stick.
Jake has said that he's interested in doing Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul.
Let's talk about fights that make sense. Jake Paul's doing whatever Jake Paul does. If Joshua's serious about wanting to stay in boxing, then fight good, real fights, if that's what you want to do. I mean, if you want to go down this other road and do this, then that's by all means do it. But it's a different journey and there's a different pathway. I think as fighters who've been in the game for a long time, I want real fights. If I was given the opportunity to fight Jake Paul, would I take it? No.
Not even for the money, no.
No, like I want to be champion of the world. That's my goal.
Chael. Sandin doesn't think any of this is real. He says people are talking about a fight that was never confirmed, Sonnen reminds everyone that Joshua has represented British boxing for nearly 20 years with professionalism. He finds it hard to believe Joshua would risk that by fighting. Jake Paul Sonnen says many fans would lose respect for Joshua if he agreed. He also says Jake Paul's team hasn't confirmed anything serious until promoters or fighters announce something official. Sonnen sees the whole story as a rumor that got out of control.
Done, right? Isn't that what we were all told? And I had reached out to Jake directly, but he didn't get back to me. I did get a response, but it was like, you know the response where somebody's like buying some time, or they just want to acknowledge, like they give you a receipt. I'm in receipt of your text message. They can give you an emoji or something like this, or sometimes there's even the automatic. I'm trying to remember what I got, but you can get like the automatic. I'll call you later. You know those? So even though I had said, hey, I'm looking for a confirmation of this fight, and he did respond, as I reflect back on that, it's like, well, he didn't respond confirming the fight. So who did confirm the fight? So I went to Helwani, and Helwani thought that it was confirmed, but he was a little lighter in the language than what I thought I remember hearing. And there's a number of boxing guys just saying, hey, that's not going to happen. And they had a few details, one of which was being Florida. And the Florida Commission would probably be open to something like this, particularly under the clause of exhibition. And then we'd all have to kind of hear, well, what are those rules and what are those stipulations? But that's reasonable to work with. But we haven't been able to get a confirmation from the Florida Commission. And now we're actually getting boxing guys on the inner circle. We're hearing from some British guys, from some fellow comrades to Joshua that said he wouldn't do that fight. He just wouldn't do that fight. That people would lose respect for him. That he has carried British boxing. This was one guy talking, but the guy said that Joshua has carried British boxing for 2 decades. And that while carrying British boxing on his back, if he was to go over and do a spoof fight against a YouTuber, now I don't look at Jake Paul that way. I look at him as a badass. I understand how greatly he is outmatched. I understand the lack of experience in comparison to Joshua. Believe me, I get it. But I don't dismiss him as a YouTuber, right? Look at him as a guy that went to the distance with Tommy Fury, not for nothing. So when I'm listening to this gentleman talk, it does make me...
Simon Jordan has an even stronger opinion. He says the idea of Joshua versus Jake Paul is a foolish fight that doesn't match real boxing standards. Jordan knows there is huge money in it, but says fights should be more than cash grabs. He believes this matchup leans too much into entertainment and ignores real competition. He says it disrespects boxers who trained their whole lives to reach Joshua's level. Jordan believes boxing loses value every time top fighters consider...
fight between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul in December. What does it tell us, Simon? Does it tell us more, as I said in the introduction, about the falling star of AJ or the rising one of Jake Paul?
It tells you that there's a huge opportunity for enormous amounts of money to be generated around a fight that really has no integrity behind it in terms of as a fight, but in terms as a media spectacle and entertainment opportunity. You've got a very talented YouTuber that's built himself into a massive influence with huge following, and you've got a former 2-time champion of the world that operates at a very high level of engagement. Whether he's a high level of performer anymore is a different discussion. So it becomes about how much can this fight generate, how many eyes on the prize. I mean, I spoke to his very close friend, Michael Jarman, about this very fight about 3 or 4 months ago, and he was like, oh, what do you think? I said, what difference does it make? Oh, it would potentially jeopardize his legacy. His legacy's sealed. You cannot undo the fact, whatever you think of Anthony Joshua,
It might
as
damage
a fighter,
it.
I don't think so. What it will do is increase his
Yeah.
bank balance. But I think in the great, I mean, it didn't damage Muhammad Ali's reputation to go in with a sumo wrestler, did it?
No, but after, when Joshua was at his peak, Simon, if I had said to you there and then, do you know what? Maybe in December 2025, Anthony Joshua will fight a YouTuber.
This is the entertainment business, and Anthony Joshua is an entertainer, and you can't undo the fact that he won the world heavyweight championship twice.
and he fought in some great fights.
So why does he need this?
Because he's in the business of entertainment. And if an opportunity is presented to him and someone wants to say that we can monetize this to the huge levels that are potentially available, why wouldn't you? It's a walk in the park.
You see, you're not having Saturday night.
Because I know
Tony. Bellew adds his criticism and says he won't believe the fight is real until both fighters walk into the ring. Bellew thinks this is another sign that boxing is drifting away from its traditions. He says the sport needs credibility, and this matchup doesn't fit that at all. Bellew doubts the fight will happen because huge events require many contracts, sponsors, broadcasters, and approvals. He can't imagine all those serious groups.
Yeah, but very, very likely. 8-rounder, going on, the reported figure is £70 million. When you see it unfold, what's your thoughts?
I don't believe a single thing until literally I see them in a ring together. He was supposed to fight Gervonta Davis, wasn't he? Who's 5 stone lighter and is 5 stone lighter and 8 inches shorter. So I don't believe anything. Until they're in a ring together, I don't believe nothing.
Obviously, AJ was meant to fight in an 8-rounder. I think Eddie said to me earlier against
an 8-rounder.
Yeah, okay. Against a top 120 opponent on BoxRec that none of us would have heard of. Okay. Just a kind of confidence, go and get a knockout type victory. I suppose you can go and do that against Jake Paul and earn an absolute fortune from
Listen, I've said before and I'll say it again. Boxing is a brutal, brutal business. Go and make as much as you can, as quick as you can. Once you've achieved your dream and goals of becoming a world champion, there's nothing left to do besides make money. What are you chasing? You've won all the belts. You know, I think he's missing a WBC. I think that's about it. Go and get the belts and that's it. Move on.
Do you believe it should be sanctioned?
What I believe doesn't matter.
No, but I'm just curious.
What I believe doesn't matter because some governing body will. Of
course.
Or some sanctioning body will. Of course. Some
the Florida State
organisation. Yeah, absolute maniacs. But you know, that's another argument. That's another cause. It's like the one I heard Chris Eubank Sr. talking about on the radio the other day. You're talking about safety of fighters. Champ, you were the worst for it. You went up to cruiserweight when you were super middleweight and didn't do it once but twice.